What if everything you thought you knew about the Fiend was wrong? What if the monster that haunted your nightmares, the creature that made grown men crumble, the supernatural force that WWE could never fully explain, what if he never truly left? And what if the one person who holds the key to all of it is the last person anyone expected? Welcome back to Wrestling Impact. I'm glad you're here tonight, because what we're about to break down is not just another Smackdown moment. This is the kind of revelation that rewires your entire understanding of WWE's supernatural universe. Uncle Howdy stepped into that arena, and when he opened his mouth, the entire wrestling world held its breath. So buckle in, because we're going deep, real deep into one of the most shocking reveals SmackDown has ever produced. Let's set the scene first, because context is everything here. 4 months, and I mean months, Uncle Howdy has been operating in the shadows. Not just figuratively. Literally appearing in darkness, in distorted camera cuts, in messages that seemed more like hallucinations than promos. He's been positioned as something beyond a normal WWE superstar. Something broken. Something ancient. And if you've been following closely, you've noticed the imagery surrounding him has always carried echoes of something familiar. Something that made you feel uneasy in the best possible way. That rot. That decay. That whisper of "let me in." If you felt it, you weren't imagining things. Now, SmackDown has been the perfect breeding ground for this kind of storytelling. It's the show that's always leaned a little harder into the theatrical, the dramatic, the borderline surreal. And on this particular night, the production team went all in. The arena lighting shifted before Howdy even appeared. The crowd, already primed for something, started buzzing with that low, collective energy you only feel when something genuinely unexpected is about to go down. Fans started looking around at each other. Phones came out. And then, silence. Not the comfortable kind. The screen flickered. That distorted static hit the speakers. And then Uncle Howdy was there, not walking out from the entrance ramp like a normal superstar, but appearing on the screen first, his face barely lit, voice measured, deliberate, almost surgical in how he chose every single word. He started slow. He talked about fractures. About things that break and don't come back together the same way. He talked about doors which, if you know your WWE history, is language loaded with meaning. And then he said something that made the entire arena go cold. He said the Fiend never died. He said the Fiend was never a character, never a mask, never a performance. He said it was a force of feeling that had been passed, transferred, inherited. And that what Bray Wyatt carried, what he channeled, was never his alone to begin with. The crowd didn't know how to react. You could see it on their faces in those ringside shots. Some people laughed nervously. Some people grabbed the person next to them. Some people just stared with that wide-eyed look of genuine, unfiltered shock. And then Howdy said the words that are still echoing across every wrestling forum, every comment section, every locker room conversation happening right now. He said, and I want you to really hear this: the Fiend chose me long before any of you saw him choose Bray. Let that land for a second. Long before. He's not claiming to be a successor. He's not claiming to be an imitation. He's claiming the original selection. He's positioning himself not as a continuation of the Fiend's legacy, but as a revelation that the entire mythology we thought we understood was actually missing a chapter. A chapter that was always there, hiding in plain sight. Now here's where it gets even more fascinating, and this is where the real storytelling genius kicks in. Uncle Howdy didn't just make this declaration and disappear. He started walking through specific moments. Not naming people directly, because WWE's supernatural storytelling always works better when it stays cryptic, but describing feelings, describing moments in arenas that longtime fans would immediately recognize. He described the feeling of a crowd falling silent, not from boredom but from genuine unease. He described the sensation of watching something on screen and not being able to look away even when everything in your instincts told you to. He described specific colors: the red and black, the lantern light, the rocking chair. And then he held up something. It was partially obscured by the camera angle, and whether that was intentional is a whole other conversation, but it looked like a deteriorated version of the Fiend mask. Not identical. Not a replica. Something older. Something worn in a way that suggested it had been around far longer than any of us realized. The arena erupted. Not in cheers exactly. In chaos. That beautiful, chaotic energy where nobody knows the appropriate response, so everybody just reacts from the gut. You had fans screaming. You had fans with their hands over their mouths. You had the commentary team doing something rare for modern WWE. They actually went quiet for a moment, letting the moment breathe, letting it exist without explanation. Because some things you can't explain, and smart television knows when to stop trying. Now let's talk about the implications of this, because if you're a wrestling fan with any investment in the supernatural side of WWE storytelling, this opens up an almost overwhelming number of possibilities. First, and this is the big one, it retroactively enriches everything we saw during the Fiend's run. Every match, every transformation, every seemingly inexplicable moment of supernatural power now has a new layer of meaning. If Howdy is telling the truth, and even if he's not, even if this is manipulation and misdirection, which is also entirely on brand, then the story of the Fiend is bigger than one man. It's a mythology. It's a living, breathing, transferable force that exists independent of any single vessel. That's horror storytelling at its absolute finest. The monster that can't be killed because it's not attached to a body. The evil that passes from host to host. WWE has flirted with this kind of narrative before, but never with this level of apparent commitment to the internal logic of the world they're building. Second, what does this mean for Howdy's trajectory? Because if he's positioning himself as someone chosen by this force before Bray, then he's not walking in anyone's shadow. He's walking in his own mythology. And that changes everything about how you book him, how you present him, how you frame his conflicts going forward. His opponents aren't just facing Uncle Howdy. They're facing something with history. Something with roots. And third, who else might be connected to this? Because that's the question the writers clearly want you asking. The Wyatt family tree has always been expansive, complicated, and intentionally murky. There are figures in that history who've never fully gotten their narrative resolution. There are threads that were dropped not because the story was over, but because circumstances changed. And if Howdy is suggesting the mythology is alive and mobile, well, where else might it have traveled? I want to take a moment here and talk about Uncle Howdy as a character in isolation from the mythology, because I think he deserves that credit independently. The work being done to build this persona has been patient, methodical. In a television landscape where everything moves fast and storylines get hot for 3 weeks before pivoting, Howdy has been allowed to simmer, to develop, to become genuinely unsettling through repetition and restraint rather than through cheap shock tactics. Every appearance has added something. Every cryptic message has layered meaning on top of meaning. And the performers, the creative team, the production, they've all committed to the bit in a way that doesn't happen often enough in modern wrestling. When it works, it's magic. And this Smackdown moment is what working looks like at full capacity. Let me paint the picture of what the arena felt like in those closing moments of the segment, because this is what I love about live wrestling. You can't manufacture this energy in a studio. After the revelation, after the mask, after the words that rewired everyone's understanding, Howdy looked directly into the camera. Not at the crowd. Into the camera. Into your living room, into your phone screen, into you specifically. And he smiled. Just barely. Just enough. And then the screen cut to static. The arena sat in stunned silence for one full beat. 2 beats. And then the noise came, not a cheer, not a boo, but that cascading sound of thousands of people processing the same thing simultaneously. It sounded like the ocean. It sounded like the moment before a storm. It was one of those rare pieces of television that makes you feel like you were there even when you're watching from home. People in the front rows were filming with their hands shaking. That's not exaggeration, you could see it in the footage. Genuine physiological response to genuine storytelling. That's what great wrestling does. That's what great character work does. It gets past your brain and goes straight to your nervous system. Now, I know some of you watching right now have questions. And I know some of you have theories. And I want you to know the comments section below this video is exactly where those theories belong. Because this is the kind of story that requires a community to fully unpack. This isn't one person with all the answers. This is a collective investigation, and Wrestling Impact has always been a channel built on exactly that kind of conversation. What do you think this revelation means for Smackdown going forward? Do you believe Howdy's claim? Do you think this is legitimate mythology or masterful manipulation? And here's the big one, who do you think the next target is? Because someone who's claiming this kind of power, this kind of ancient selection, is building towards something, and that something is going to hit hard when it arrives. The beauty of what Smackdown delivered with this moment is that it respects the audience. It trusts you to sit with ambiguity. It trusts you to tolerate mystery without demanding immediate answers. And in a media world where everything gets over-explained and overanalyzed before it's even finished breathing, that restraint is genuinely refreshing. This is the kind of moment that fans will reference years from now. When the full story has been told, whenever that is, people will point back to this Smackdown, to this reveal, and say that's where everything changed. And they'll be right. We are watching something unfold in real time, and that privilege doesn't come along as often as we'd like in this business. When it does, you have to honor it. You have to pay attention. You have to be present in the story. And Wrestling Impact is going to be here for every single chapter. If this video gave you something, if it sparked a theory, confirmed a feeling, or just made you more excited for what's coming, then do me a favor. Hit that like button, because it tells us this kind of deep storytelling content is exactly what you want to see more of. Subscribe if you're not already part of this community, because we are just getting started on this particular thread, and you do not want to miss what comes next. Drop your theories in the comments. Genuinely, I read them, the team reads them, and some of the best insights about these storylines come from this community rather than from anywhere else. The Fiend never died. Uncle Howdy was chosen first. And Smackdown just lit the fuse on something that could burn for a very, very long time. Stay locked in. We'll see you in the next one.